This is a story called Luck by Mark Twain. It was at a banquet in London in honor of one of the two or three conspicuously illustrious English military names of this generation, for reasons which will presently appear. I will withhold his real name and titles and call him Lieutenant General Lord Arthur Scoresby, B.C. K.C.B. E.T.C. E.T.C. etc. The fascination there is in a renowned name. There sat the man in actual flesh whom I had heard of so many thousands of times since that day, 30 years before, when his name shot suddenly to the zenith from a Crimean battlefield to remain forever celebrated. 'Twas food and drink to me to look and look and look at that demigod, scanning, searching, noting the quietness, the reserve, the noble gravity of his countenance, the simple honesty that expressed itself all over him, the sweet unconsciousness of his greatness, unconsciousness of the hundreds of admiring eyes fastened upon him, unconsciousness of the deep, loving, sincere worship welling out of the breasts of those people and flowing towards him. The clergyman at my left was an old acquaintance of mine, clergyman now, but had spent the first half of his life in the camp and field and as an instructor in the military school at Woolwich. Just at the moment I had been talking about, a veiled and singular light glimmered in his eyes, and he leaned down and muttered confidently to me, indicating the hero of the banquet with a gesture. Privately, he's an absolute fool. This verdict was a great surprise to me. If its subject had been Napoleon or Socrates or Solomon, my astonishment could not have been greater. Two things I was well aware of, that the Reverend was a man of strict veracity, and that his judgment of men was good. Therefore I knew, beyond doubt or question, that the world was mistaken about this hero. He was a fool. So I meant to find out at a convenient moment how the Reverend, all solitary and alone, had discovered the secret. Some days later the opportunity came, and this is what the Reverend told me. About 40 years ago I was an instructor in the military academy at Woolwich. I was present in one of the sections where young Scoresby underwent his preliminary examination and was touched to the quick with piety, for the rest of the class answered upon brightly and handsomely, while he was, why, dear me, he didn't know anything, so to speak. He was evidently good and sweet and lovable and guileless, and so it was exceedingly painful to hear him stand there, as serene as a graven image, and deliver himself of answers which were veritably miraculous for stupidity and ignorance. All the compassion in me was aroused in his behalf. I said to myself, when he comes to be examined again, he will be flung over, of course, so it'll be simply a harmless act of charity to ease his fall as much as I can. I took him aside and found that he knew a little of Caesar's history, as he didn't know anything else. I went to work and drilled him like a galley slave on a certain line of stock questions concerning Caesar, which I knew would be used, if you'll believe me. He went through with flying colors on examination day. He went through on that purely superficial cram, and he got compliments too, while others, who knew 1,000 times more than he, got plucked by some strangely lucky accident, an accident not likely to happen twice in a century. He was asked no questions outside of the narrow limits of his drill. It was stupefying. Well, all through his course I stood by him, with something of the sentiment which a mother feels for a crippled child, and he always saved himself just by miracle, apparently. Now, of course, the thing that would expose him and kill him at last was mathematics. I resolved to make his death as easy as I could, so I drilled him and crammed him and crammed him and drilled him just on the line of questions which the examiners would be most likely to use, and then launching him on his fate. Well, sir, try to conceive of the result. To my consternation, he took the first prize, and Whether he got a perfect ovation in the way of compliments. Sleep? There was no more sleep for me for a week. My consciousness tortured me day and night. What I had done purely through charity, and only to ease the poor youth's fall. I never had dreamed of any such prosperous result as the thing that had happened. I felt as guilty, as miserable as the creator of Frankenstein. Here was a wooden head whom I had put in the way of glittering promotions and prodigious responsibilities. But one thing could happen. He and his responsibilities would go all to ruin together at the first opportunity. The Crimean War had just broken out. Of course there had to be a war. I said to myself, we couldn't have peace and give this donkey a chance to die before he's found out. I waited for the earthquake. It came, and it made me reel when it did come. It was actually gazetted to a captaincy in a marching regiment. Better men grow old and grey in the service before they climb to a sublimity like that. And who could ever foreseen that they would go and put such a load of responsibility on such green and inadequate shoulders? I could just barely have stood it if they had made him a cornet, but a captain. Think of it. I thought my hair would turn white. Consider what I did. I who so loved repose and incantation and action. I said to myself, I am responsible to the country for this, and I must go alone with him and protect the country against him as far as I can. So I took my poor little capital that I had saved up through years of work and grinding economy, and went with a sigh and bought a quartency and his regiment, and away we went to the field. And there, oh dear, it was awful. Blunders. Why, he never did anything but blunder. But you see, nobody was in the fellow's secret. Everybody had him focused, wrong, and necessarily misinterpreted his performance every time. Consequently, they took his idiotic blunders for inspirations of genius. They did, honestly. His mildest blunders were enough to make a man in his right mind cry, and they did make me cry, and rage, and rave too, privately of course. And the thing that kept me always in a sweat of apprehension was the fact that every fresh blunder he made increased the luster of his reputation. I kept saying to myself, he'll get so high that when discovery does finally come, it'll be like the sun falling out of the sky. He went right along up from grade to grade over the dead bodies of his superiors until at last, in the hottest moment of the battle of... Down went our colonel, and my heart jumped into my mouth, for Scoresby was next in rank. Now for it, said I. Well, all land and shovel and 10 minutes, sure. That was also hot. The Allies were steadily giving way on the field. Our regiment occupied a position that was vital. A blunder now must be destruction. At this crucial moment, what does this immortal fool do but detach the place and charge over a neighboring hill where there was no suggestion of an enemy? There you go, I said to myself. This is it, the end at last. And away they go. And here, over the shoulder, the hill before, the insane movement could be discovered and stopped. And what did we find? An entire and unsuspected Russian army in reserve. What happened? We were eaten up. That is necessarily what would have happened in 99 cases out of 100, but those Russians argued that no single regiment would come browsing out there at such a time. It must be the entire English army, but the slight Russian game was acting mocked. So they turned tail, and away they went. Pell-mell over the hill and down into the field in wild confusion, and day after that they themselves broke the solid Russian center in the field and tore through. And in no time there was the most tremendous rout you've ever seen, and the defeat of the Allies was turned into a sweeping and splendid victory. and decorated him. On the field, in presence of all the armies, Scoresby's blundered out, merely mistaking his right hand for his left, ordering Cromwell to fall back and support our right, and instead he fell forward and went over the hill to the left, but
Most likely it's not Hopscombe.
See, military genius
Made the dice.
will never fade while history books will
Yes.
last. He is just as good and sweet and lovable and unpretending as a man can be, but he doesn't come in when it rains. That is absolutely true. He is the supremest past in the entire universe, and until half an hour go by and nobody knew it but himself. He has been pursued day by day and year by year by the most phenomenal, astonishing looking. He's been a shining soldier, a horse for generations. He has committed his blunders, and yet has never committed one that didn't make him a knight or a baronet or lord or something. His breath, why, it's just clothed in domestic and foreign decorations, whilst every one of them is a record of some shouting stupidity or other. Taken together, they are proof. They are the very best thing about this world that can befall man is to be born lucky. I say again, as I say, Benjamin Scoresby is an absolute fool.
I should not get used to this kind of straight.